strode forward and set his foot on the lowest step. But at that moment, several things happened. Frodo felt something seize him by the ankle, and he fell with a cry. The others swung round and saw the waters of the lake seething, as if a host of snakes were swimming up from the southern end. Out from the water, a long, sinuous tentacle had crawled. It was pale green and luminous and wet. Its fingered end had hold of Frodo's foot and was dragging him into the water. This is almost the entirety of the description given by Tolkien of the creature that appears from the lake at the entrance to the Mines of Moria in the Fellowship of the Ring. Tolkien doesn't even give this creature a name, only calling it the Watcher in the Water later in the story. And so it was from this short section that Peter Jackson and his team of artists had to create a realization of the first monster that appears in The Lord of the Rings. And it was from this rendering that Howard Shore had to create his musical characterization of the beast. Like every place, person, culture and object in Middle-earth, Howard Shore gave each of the monsters a clearly defined musical character, each rooted in their ancient history, held in time and place, but ready to come to life if disturbed. But what does this music sound like? Let's start with the first monster, the Watcher in the Water. After the Fellowship fails to make it across the pass of Carathras, they choose to travel through the depths of the mountain instead, through the Mines of Moria. Gandalf attempts to open the entrance to the mine, and Pippin and Merry throw stones into the dark, cold lake next to the entrance, whose waters shimmer quietly in the moonlight.
Do not disturb the water.
We hear an earthy, ominous line in contrabassoon, low cellos and double basses, featuring jarring quarter-tone figures. Notes between the notes. Something is rising from the depths.
It's a riddle.
And with each unsettling agitation of the surface of the water, the music responds with a snarling note in strings.
It's the Elvish word for friend.
But nothing is revealed yet. As they finally enter the mines, they begin to realize something is not as it should be. Where they expected a welcome from Gimli's people, they instead find only death.
This is no mine. It's a tomb.
But this stirring, frenzied music is not for the orcs ahead of them, but for the monster behind them. A tam-tam heralds the arrival of the Watcher in the Water as it grabs Frodo's leg, setting off an aggressive taiko and bass drum pattern. As the Watcher lurches from the water, we hear a seemingly unending string of aleatoric figures. This is music of chance, of randomness. In the score for this section, Shaw leaves a significant amount of the musical outcome to the players. He specifies the notes and the dynamics, and makes suggestions as to how these notes should be played, but what exactly each musician produces is left almost entirely up to them. They can choose to play the notes in different orders, they can attack the notes in different ways, and they can choose to play the musical figures at their own speed. What results, as Doug Adams puts it, is a convulsing skein of tones, gurgling and grabbing in a disturbing musical shiver. Shaw adds additional instruments to the mass of music as it progresses, but he holds one section back of the orchestra for this moment. Trumpets blast out their aleatoric fanfare, creating a metallic cluster of chromaticism at the heart of the orchestral sound. This is music at peak intensity, a moment of shock or paralysis.
Into the mines!
The music returns to the thumping drums as Frodo escapes the Watcher, but the aleatoric clusters soon return for the final thundering act. This aggressive and visceral music is uniquely associated with this monster, but a very different sound was needed for our next creature. A beast that is pivotal to the story, one that only appears towards the end of Frodo's journey. As Frodo and Sam get ever closer to the fires of Mount Doom, Gollum devises a plan to retake the ring by leading Frodo and Sam to their deaths. He takes them up the stairs of Cirith Ungol, and after Frodo and Sam separate, Gollum leads Frodo to the entrance of a dark tunnel. And we hear the beginnings of a new 8-note idea in bassoon and low strings. Unstable, heavily chromatic, ominous and disjointed music, sitting underneath quietly creeping chords in strings.
Now that I'm here, I don't think I want to.
As Frodo steps forward, the music rises in step with him. The timpani and brass beats remind us that every step that he takes is one too far. This music is part of the cave he is entering, seeping out of the webs that cling to the cracked walls. This is Shelob's lair. And for this sequence, Shaw uses a lot of classic horror scoring techniques. Glissandos in strings, multi-note chromatic clusters, and an atonal, almost serialist harmonic language. He's scoring it like an opera, with each beat carefully aligned with the music to heighten the emotion. As Frodo begins to realise the danger he is in, we hear a sudden, manic idea in strings and brass. A swarm of activity with aggressive, stabbing string lines. This is unlike anything we've heard in the score so far, more Bernard Herrmann than Howard Shaw. But amongst the chaos, Frodo realises that there is still hope. As we hear Galadriel's voice, Shaw gives us a deep version of the Lothlorien theme in low strings. A light in the dark, a light that may save him, but that will also reveal what's hiding in the shadows. The music alternates between wriggling orchestral tuttis and brass sforzando chords to mark Shelob's arrival. Frodo finds a brief escape from the beast, with a rising figure in strings seeming to suggest that he might get out alive. But this feeling of relief doesn't last for long. He is caught in Shelob's trap. Accompanied by a twisting web of strings, brass and woodwind. He tries to escape, and the music regains its energy, aggressively repeating the chromatic idea that began the monster's music. This music is inherently unsettled, the meter tripping back and forth with short and long ideas. Brass swells, stabbing string chords and rising clusters. Shelob may have lost here, but her music stays with us, seared into our mind, burnishing long after she has retreated. These two monsters, the Watcher in the Water and Shelob, were accompanied by music that relied heavily on the sounds pioneered by 20th century orchestral composers like Penderecki, aleatoric ideas, glissandos, tone rows and cluster chords. But for our last monster, Shaw took a very different approach.
You know what they awoke in the darkness of Khazad-dûm. Shadow and flame.
We go back now to the Fellowship in the Mines of Moria, after the path behind them is blocked by the Watcher in the Water. At the beginning of their journey through the mines, we hear a musical idea that gives a small hint of what is to come. Out of deep brass and strings playing in D minor, we hear a distant chanting chorus. These are the voices of the dwarves, singing Durin's song in the Khuzdul language. They are lost voices echoing in the dark, singing of ancient times. Within this song, there lives a reminder of what this place once was, the glory of the city, of the kingdom under the mountain. But it also contains within it a warning about the dark forces that linger in these halls.
Shadow moves in the dark.
After the Fellowship are attacked by orcs and a cave troll, and as they escape the tomb, we hear a glorious rendition of the Fellowship theme in 3/4, underneath the 5/4 pulse of the orcs.
To the bridge of Khazad.
They are surrounded, trapped, but not for long. Something has awoken.
A Balrog. A demon of the ancient world.
As the creature filters through the halls of the city, its music stirs into life. The deep voices that accompanied the Fellowship's entrance to the mine no longer sing of the kingdom of the dwarves, but now of the beast that closes in on them. The demon comes, the earth shakes, fear rips our heart. Shaw uses the male chorus again, but it's now accompanied by shouted Maori grunts. This is primal music. Steely blocks of low, heavy material, rock and stone, fire and smoke. The orchestra surges into life with darting, syncopated figures in strings and brass. But it soon retreats inwards again. We hear these accented minor chords. A, F, C and D minor, heard in parallel, leading us back into the grunting, ritualistic choral writing as Gandalf prepares to confront the demon. The brass and vocal writing becomes busier now, and a call and response idea drives the music forwards. And as the Balrog descends on the Fellowship, we hear our first key melodic idea in brass, the Moria theme. A rising figure that is mostly harmonized in parallel fifths in this sequence. Chiseled, hard-edged music for the rock and stone that encases the voices from the deep. This theme is passed around the orchestra from trombones to high trumpets, until we hear the next key melodic theme, which Doug Adams called the Dark Places of the World theme, a three-note idea that starts with the perfect fifth from the harmony of the Moria theme, but that drops down a half step on the third note, creating a dissonant mass of notes. The Moria theme then takes over again, until for a brief moment the brass parts fall away. The Balrog is getting closer, and the chorus responds in turn. Flames lick our skin, fear rips our heart. The demon comes, a great shadow fire. The brass join the choral forces, creating towering blocks of vertical harmony, rising to new heights. As we try to imagine the scale of the creature that approaches. And although we get a brief moment of relief as the Fellowship theme appears, the music quickly returns to its previous state as we see the Balrog for the first time. The orchestra crackles and burns with an intense, multi-note, pulsating, quivering cluster chord. Now, the visuals by themselves are enough to strike fear into our hearts, and so the music is momentarily pushed into the background. But as Gandalf holds the Balrog back, Moria's theme rises again from the depths. It's repeated multiple times in brass, strings and chorus, stacked one on top of another. Until finally the column of harmony collapses under its own heavy weight.
you fools!
Howard Shore's music for the creatures of Middle-earth, from The Watcher in the Water to the Balrog, undoubtedly contains some of the most aggressive and unsettling ideas he ever wrote for the trilogy. But I think the most remarkable thing that he did was to make this music mean something in the context of the story. This music induces so much fear and anxiety because it lives in the same musical world as the music of hope, goodness, or sorrow. The Lothlorien theme in Shelob's Lair, the Fellowship theme in the Mines of Moria, or this lament for Gandalf after he's fallen, all feel comforting because of the music that surrounds them. Shore's score for The Lord of the Rings is sometimes overwhelmingly dark, but this only makes the music of hope that much brighter, so it can shine as a light in dark places when all other lights have gone out. Thank you so much for watching. I had so much fun putting this together, and if you want to watch an additional section of this analysis about the Cave Trolls music in the Mines of Moria, then you can find an extended edition of this video exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming service set up by a number of amazing educational content creators, and there you can find bonus content from me, but also from YouTubers like Adam Neely, 12tone, and Polyphonic. Nebula have also partnered with CuriosityStream, the source of some of the best documentaries on the internet, including things like this amazing feature-length film on conductor Paavo Järvi. And if you're interested in this, click on the link in the description or go to curiositystream.com/listeningin. And for just over $14 or £10 a year, you'll not only get access to all of CuriosityStream's documentaries, but you'll also get access to Nebula for free. By doing this, you're not only supporting this channel, but also so many other content creators. Plus, you can also watch all of our videos ad-free. See you next time.